Can you tell the difference between this fake pair of Nike shoes and these? What about whether this painting, verified by Salvador Dalí himself, is actually real? Chances are pretty high Bernard Ewell can.
Oh my gracious.
Ewell calls himself the Dalí Detective. He's vetted over 50,000 Salvador Dalí works of art.
People will say, do you know a Dalí fake when you see it? And I'll say, I almost always do immediately.
Dalí was one of the most famous artists in history and one of the most forged. Today, his art can sell for more than $30,000. But his paintings have been ripped off so many times that it's kept Bernard Ewell in business for over 40 years. Forged Dalí prints flooded the market during the 80s. But why? Well, Dalí made it kinda easy to rip off his work, whether he realized it or not. Dalí wasn't the first victim of art forgery. It's been around since the Renaissance. Back then, it was a commonly accepted practice. Even Michelangelo falsely claimed one of his early works was an ancient Roman statue. But by the 20th century, the art industry had become super competitive, and people started seeing art as an investment. That meant that art forgers could cash in on the trend. In 1988, just 1 year before Dalí's death, federal prosecutors charged 4 people from a Manhattan gallery with fraud. They were accused of selling more than 1,000 fake Dalí lithographs for $3.4 million. Similar schemes were discovered in places like Honolulu and Los Angeles. By the early 2000s, art fraud was one of the United States' biggest illicit businesses. Appraisers like Bernard were needed to help buyers sift through the fakes.
So when I started doing my research, I called colleagues, I called dealers, I called museum people, and everybody said they knew there were a lot of fakes, but nobody knew how to tell the difference between the good ones and the bad ones. And they kept saying, it's going to be dangerous. You ought to back off. I don't want to do it myself, and you shouldn't either.
He saw that warning as an opportunity.
Nobody else would touch Dalí. I was all alone doing it. And that's what I've been doing for the last 40 plus years.
So, how does he know when he's looking at a forged Dalí as opposed to the real deal?
It really is a detective process.
One of his methods involves examining the texture. This is an authentic piece made with a printing plate that Dalí etched himself.
But this is actually from the plate that he scratched the design in what we call dry point. And the debossed line around here was made by the pressure of the printing plate in the press.
This fake print has a debossed line too, but according to Bernard,
the plate line around here is false. It was just added to mislead people.
The big giveaway on this fake is the texture.
First of all, if this was a dry point, after washing my hands, I'd be able to feel the raised ink in those lines. I don't. It's totally flat. Second of all, if this had been added as, let's say, gouache paint by the publisher, again, I would be able to feel the texture. I can't. And it just doesn't look right on this print.
Bernard always looks at the signature too, but it's not always reliable.
I always say the artwork has to authenticate the signature. Salvador Dalí actually signed his works in several hundred different ways. And so I don't use the signature alone.
And then, well, there's the fact that some Dalí fakes might have real Dalí signatures. This collector on Pawn Stars thought he was pawning off an authentic Dalí.
I think the signature is legitimate, but I don't think it's hand done by Dalí.
That's because Dalí had signed thousands of blank pages to expedite the printing process for his publishers.
There was an almost endless supply of blank sheets of paper with Salvador Dalí pencil signatures on them.
This gave forgers an easy way in, eventually leading to many huge busts, including in June 1988 when police seized tens of thousands of fake Dalí prints. In the 80s, it was common for artists to make authorized prints of their works, like this one.
This is a photomechanical reproduction, but that doesn't make it a fake. It makes it a reproduction of the original. This was done under a contract between Dalí and the publisher, and he signed the resulting prints.
Because Dalí was one of the most popular living artists, and because he published a lot of reproductions, forgers could easily capitalize on ripping them off. Throughout his career, Bernard has seen 58,000 prints attributed to Dalí, more than half of which he deemed as fakes.
And I'm proud to say I've never been proved wrong.
When Dalí's health started to decline in the 80s, he took a step back from his work.
But nobody knew that. They just thought he was a recluse. Basically, there was nobody who was really patrolling the market, really watching for the problems.
It didn't help that Dalí also had vague contracts with dozens of different publishers, allowing an unlimited amount of prints to be made. Coupled with the widespread use of Dalí's real signature, the authenticity of many prints on the market is still pretty ambiguous today. When Dalí got sick, demand for his work went up. People were expecting a hike in value after his death, but when he died in 1989, the price of his works didn't budge.
And one of the 6 myths that drives the art market is that when an artist dies, the values go up. It's seldom true.
With so many fakes still on the market, galleries are hesitant to buy his work.
There are very, very few galleries now that sell Dalí prints, but the resale market is huge.
Hundreds of sellers on eBay claim to have Dalí prints. Ewell spent a month vetting the listings.
And I found that about 60% of those were fake.
Ewell likes to think that maybe Dalí wouldn't have minded the copycats.
He was a clown. He promoted himself everywhere he went. He got the publicity he wanted.
Around the world, consumers spend $200 billion on art each year, and $6 billion of that is tainted by illegal or illicit activity. It's tough to know exactly how much of the fake art sold today is Dalí's, but it's fair to assume plenty of it is still out there. If your love for the hustle is real, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more videos just like this. And if you're itching for more, sign up for our daily newsletter that keeps you in the loop for all things business and tech.